It's really exciting, eh? We're going to have a fight and scrap with a warg.
There's wargs there, yes, there's wargs there, and then spinning around and with horror seeing them coming up over that distant ridge. There they are! It's going to be crashing through that gap, then bouncing kind of off this rock here. Just going to get the wargs ready to move, and on action, you guys turn as if you're hearing thundering footsteps.
So wargs have become quite prominent now, so we can do something different to the hyena thing that we did in the Two Towers. So I just think we should do a sort of hellhound type look and just see how we go.
I was never hugely happy with the warg design from the Two Towers. We based that on hyenas, which, you know, was a nice idea, but it was something about the design, and obviously back in those days the CGI was relatively primitive.
They maybe felt a little bit fuzzy ball-like and possibly just didn't quite feel as intimidating as we'd all hoped that they would.
The wargs were something I wanted to redesign. We went for maybe a slightly more traditional wolf kind of look.
In the early rounds, we designed these amazingly rangy, unique creatures. But eventually, Pete felt very strongly that none of these early ideas had the brutal aggression that was necessary to project through the wargs, that these were barely tameable, crazed, almost psychotic animals.
There was a key piece of artwork that Gus Hunter had done that was this awesome shot of this fierce wolf, sort of the angular brows and that sort of like more pointed face that Pete ended up liking.
So when we started talking about animating for the wargs, one of the considerations was exactly how intelligent they are.
We went back and looked at them in the book, and of course the way Tolkien wrote them, they're intelligent creatures and they speak. But we realized that there would be a problem trying to make them speak on camera because they're being ridden by, you know, Azog and these other orcs who really should be the ones that are in control. So Peter made the decision early on that we wouldn't have them speak, but they still needed to be intelligent in the same way that Tolkien wrote their intelligence in the book.
Pete asked if we would build a rideable warg.
Joel, do you want to just operate this front leg? Push it as high as you can get it.
Great fun building that sort of stuff, and it certainly gave the actor the feeling that he was riding on this incredible creature.
Man's best friend.
Come on over here. So this character here, this is our matriarch. That's why she's not quite an albino, but just very pale. But she's the one that Azog rides on top of. She's like the, you know, the queen bitch. So.
Manu Bennett, Azog in the movie, came to the mocap stage and he bonded really nicely with his warg, the matriarch.
One of the first things that I said to Pete, because I was sitting on this green screen giant warg, was, do I have a relationship with it? Instead of referring off to my fellow orcs, can I run my hand down through the neck of my warg and say to the warg, you know, can you smell the fear?
No, Sticky. No, Stinga.
And ultimately what we see is hugely powerful animals with all of the worst attributes that we might imagine in a mutant wolf.
The wargs are related to the rise of this evil at Dol Guldur. But the importance of all that is really going to become apparent when you see the third Hobbit movie.
Here we are. So the idea is everyone that's pushing on the door, as soon as Richard flicks it up, you guys could just shove it open and get in there as quickly as you can. Remember, absolute terror even when the door is closed. 3, 2, 1, action. Open the door!
What is that?
That is our host.
Tolkien describes Beorn as a skin changer. He can change into a bear and back again.
The whole idea of being able to change into a bear is a specifically Norse concept. It relates to the berserkers who can enter this extraordinary state of rage.
Beorn, he's a bit of a mystery. There are mentions by Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings that Beorn was descended from the men of the mountains. He also posits that those people were driven out when the orcs came into the mountains. So that gave us the idea that he's the last of his kind.
There are others like you.
Once there were many.
Now?
Now there's only one. Even in his human form, there is something wild about him that you can't really understand.
We don't make him look too bear-like when he was a human. We didn't want to do that thing where, oh, look, he's obviously going to turn into a bear. We want him to look like a very strong man. The wig is made of horsehair to give it a different texture, to try and get him very sort of animalistic, but actually still a man rather than an animal. We also had to make a prosthetic nose.
I'm happy that it's only a nose job and teeth. And that happens to many people in Hollywood, I think. Luckily, I can take it off when the day is done.
I can stand here and look at them. There's two different views.
While we could all get our heads around Gandalf scale and Hobbit scale as generalities, suddenly Beorn comes along. He's 8 foot tall.
Because of the scale issue, he was always usually filming on a different set.
Enjoy the dinner. Very well-behaving colleagues here. We are standing there, waiting for the take. Like that.
Action.
I don't like dwarves. They're greedy. He's very suspicious. He doesn't think good of humans or dwarves or hobbits. But orcs, I hate more. What do you need?
You know, his heart is gentle, but because he basically can become a bear, he can also be enormously dangerous.
No sign of the orcs. We have luck on our side.
He is supposed to be in bear format, one of the most powerful creatures in Middle-earth. We tried a number of things as to how that might look and whether he'll be more of a werebear type character or whether we're going to go for a standard bear.
So how do you make it interesting without making simply a very big Kodiak bear?
We definitely want to try capture something that's quite ferocious, and when he's in his bear mode, somewhat of a berserker and is a bit of a force of nature, really.
He's a bear, but we wanted to bring in some of the performance of the human side of him that you see. And so some design ideas are mimicked in both, like his facial hair, the hair down the back of his head. We took all those features and then we took a real bear. We kind of blended the two together so you have some recognition when you're looking at Beorn of his human counterpart. Then we just turned him into a much larger, older fighting bear.
When Beorn turns into a bear, it's not a cuddly circus bear. This is, you know, he's turning into a wild animal, and just how much will and control he has of himself when he's a bear, it's a question that is to some degree unanswered.
Come on, we must reach the mountain before the sun sets on Durin's Day.
Between the dwarves and the Lonely Mountain is a massive forest. Here we finally arrive at Mirkwood. Mirkwood is a forest that has been diseased. It's like a virus has spread through it.
Mirkwood is its own living entity, and it has this foreboding feeling to it. It's full of dark elements and dark forces, and it's become a sanctuary for evil, really.
Things happen in that forest that they are the stuff of nightmares. Certainly my nightmares. Big spiders.
The Hobbit was my favorite book when I was a kid, and the terrifying spiders left such an impression on my young mind that they were one of the only things I could actually remember when I was trying to call back The Hobbit to get ready for this job was those spiders in Mirkwood.
The spiders in Mirkwood are related to the decay of the forest. They're related to the rise of this evil to the south.
The writings of Tolkien have always had spiders prominent. They all descended from Ungoliant. Her descendants were what populated Middle-earth.
And they are related to Shelob, who we see later in The Return of the King. The thing with scenes with spiders that I always tap into is my horrific, total fear of spiders. When we did Shelob, there was ways that Shelob moved that really creeps me out about spiders. This time round in Mirkwood, I was able to do webs and nests. When I'm in the garden and I see a spider's nest in a bush, it kind of freaks me out. I can just imagine, you know, thousands of little tiny spiders sort of breeding in there, and one day they're all going to come out.
Spiders coming up, coming up.
They're coming back!
Here comes the tree spider!
The spiders provide quite a formidable set of foes to Bilbo and the dwarves.
They're pretty terrifying. The main thing you're going to see is their beady little claws coming to get you.
This sequence is pretty creepy. Pete's an arachnophobe, so these spiders creep him out as much as the audience.
There's a big surprise when another spider crawls up behind him that he doesn't see.
He tries to push it like the spiders are in the theater with you.
In this scene, Bilbo literally finds himself in the heart of the spider's nest, and it's not good. I mean, I am doing everything that I can possibly think of to freak myself out.
If you've got a thing about spiders anyway, and I've got a minor thing, I've got better over the years, but spiders attacking you and goo coming out, and that's a viscerally disgusting image. This will be pretty scary for the audience.
Excuse me, but you're from Lake Town, if I'm not mistaken. That barge over there, it wouldn't be available for hire by any chance.
It's never Thorin or the company's plan to go to Lake Town. They wanted to just go straight to the Lonely Mountain and bypass it, but they have an encounter with Bard. They'll pay him to get the weapons and the food and the clothing that they need, and so that's why he takes them to Lake Town.
Lake Town was built on the remains of the magnificent city of Esgaroth, which is long gone. And now we're left with this rotting wooden town in the middle of a lake.
It's got a faded glory, a sadness to it, but a very quirky character. I wanted it like a Dickensian slum.
There's not much to celebrate in Lake Town. You just survive. It's a cold place in the middle of a lake. People are living hand to mouth, basically. And so is Bard.
Bard was a character from The Hobbit that we had a lot of fun enhancing more than what he is in the book. He gave us opportunities to explore part of the heritage of Lake Town.
We discover from the appendices in The Lord of the Rings that he is a descendant of Girion, the Lord of Dale. His ancestors had experienced the great Holocaust that happened when Smaug attacked the first time.
I need you to distract the guards. Once I'm at the top of the tower, I'll set the arrow to the bow.
We made a decision early on that you need to understand what motivates him. You need to care about him.
So it was important for us to give Bard a family, because ultimately that is the thing that he cares most about.
Our house, it's being watched.
He has a son, Bane, who is in the book. John and I have worked a lot together on this film. He did a stellar job.
Go!
He's at that age, you know. He's growing on a daily basis.
I think I started at about 5'1", and now I'm about 5'7". I've grown about 6 inches in 2 foot sizes since the beginning.
And then Bard, he now has 2 other children, Sigrid and a little Tilda.
Dad! Where have you been? Father, there you are. I was worried.
Our dad, Bard, he really loves us and he really loves his family. But I think there's something which is a little bit mysterious about him and no one really trusts him 100%.
You mark my words, that troublemaking bargeman is behind all this.
The Master is the great antithesis of the natural-born leader that Bard is. You find someone who has managed to acquire power and then proceeds to dig himself into that position and hold on to it for dear life.
The Master is supreme ruler of his own little universe, and it is a small universe. It's just, a city on stilts, and he is the leader of their people. And I suppose, like all supreme leaders, he likes his image to be seen everywhere to remind people of who he is.
The Master of Lake Town is played by Stephen Fry. He is a vain, pompous, rather aristocratic. Sorry, I'm talking about the Master of Lake Town here now.
Stephen Fry is able to capture both sides of the character, the politician, the urbane, well-spoken, charming side, but he's also able to really make you feel the venality and the greed of the Master.
The mood of the people, sire, is turning ugly.
They're commoners, Alfred. They've always been ugly.
Alfred is the Master's aide de camp, and between the two of them, they run a rather miserable little backwater, really.
I think Alfred, he doesn't really care for the Master. There is no real love there. He's loyal because it makes sense.
Go now with our good wishes. May your return bring fortune for all!
Amid Stephen Fry and trumpets, the Master of Lake Town has given us his blessing to go on and try and get our stuff back from Smaug.
And ultimately, the jeopardy at the end of the Desolation of Smaug, and certainly going into the third Hobbit movie, is Lake Town. That Lake Town is under threat from the dragon.
Dragon, fire, and ruin. If you waken that beast, it will destroy us all.